Anna and Lily Hargrove were identical, not just in the way that most people mean when they say identical. The same face, the same hair, the same general outline. They were identical in the way that made strangers stop and stare, and teachers give up trying to tell them apart, and their own mother admit once after a glass of wine at Thanksgiving that she had mixed them up in the bathtub when they were 6 months old and never been entirely sure she corrected the mistake. Same green eyes, same dark red hair, same freckles across the bridge of the nose in the same constellation pattern, same height, 5'7", same left-handedness, same habit of tilting their heads slightly to the right when they were thinking. They were mirrors of each other, reflections walking side by side through the world, finishing each other's sentences and laughing at the same time and knowing, without speaking, when the other one was sad or scared or lying about being fine. They were 36 years old, and they had never lived more than 20 miles apart except once. That once lasted 8 years, and it changed everything. Lily Hargrove was a human rights attorney. She worked for a small nonprofit called the Kepler Foundation that documented war crimes and provided legal representation to victims of political violence in conflict zones. She was brave in the way that civilians are sometimes brave, not with weapons or training, but with persistence and stubbornness and an absolute refusal to look away from things that most people couldn't bear to see. She had worked in South Sudan, in Myanmar, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She interviewed survivors of massacres. She collected testimony. She built cases that she submitted to international courts, knowing that most of them would take years to prosecute, and some would never be prosecuted at all. And she did it anyway because she believed that documenting the truth was a form of resistance even when justice was slow. She was in eastern Ukraine when it happened. A documentation mission, collecting evidence of civilian targeting in the occupied territories. She was traveling with a translator named Oleg and a local driver named Yuri in an unmarked white SUV with press markings on the side and the roof. They were 40 miles east of Dnipro, heading toward a village where witnesses had reported the discovery of a mass burial site. They never reached the village. A militia checkpoint stopped them on a dirt road between 2 wheat fields. 4 men in mismatched military gear. No insignia, no flag. They were part of a paramilitary group, led by a man named Viktor Sholkov, a former Russian military intelligence officer who had gone freelance during the early months of the conflict and built a private militia that operated in the gray space between the official military and organized crime. Sholkov funded his operation through extortion, the theft of humanitarian aid, and the occasional kidnapping of foreign nationals for ransom. He had a reputation for brutality that was specific and deliberate. He didn't use violence randomly. He used it as a tool, carefully, precisely, the way a carpenter uses a hammer. When he hurt someone, it was because he wanted a specific result. The result he wanted today was simple. The Kepler Foundation had published a report 3 weeks earlier that included satellite imagery of a mass grave in territory controlled by Sholkov's militia. The report was cited by the International Criminal Court. Sholkov's name appeared in the document. He wanted the documentation to stop. He wanted to send a message to every human rights organization operating in the region that his territory was not a place where you pointed cameras and asked questions. Lily was that message. They pulled her from the SUV. They let Oleg and Yuri go. They told them to drive back to Dnipro and tell everyone what happened. Oleg begged. Yuri offered money. The militiamen pointed rifles at them and told them they had 10 seconds to leave. Oleg and Yuri drove away. Oleg was crying. Yuri was silent. Yuri had grown up during the first conflict in the 90s, and he knew what silence from men like this meant. Sholkov executed Lily Hargrove on the side of a dirt road between 2 wheat fields at 3:47 p.m. local time. He did it himself. 1 shot. He filmed it on a phone and distributed the video through channels that he knew would reach the international press. He wanted the world to see. He wanted the world to be afraid. The world saw. Anna saw. Anna Hargrove was sitting in her apartment in Arlington, Virginia, when the call came. It was from Lily's supervisor at the Kepler Foundation, a woman named Dr. Catherine Engel, who had spent 30 years in human rights work and had delivered news like this before, but never like this. Never about someone she loved, never about someone whose sister she was now calling. Anna, I need to tell you something about Lily. Anna knew before Dr. Engel said the words. She knew because she felt it. At 3:47 p.m., sitting at her kitchen table drinking coffee, she had felt something tear inside her chest. Not pain, absence. Like a sound that had been playing in the background of her entire life suddenly stopped. She had put her coffee down and stared at the wall and thought, something is wrong with Lily. She didn't call because she told herself she was being irrational. She wasn't being irrational. She's gone, Anna, I'm so sorry. She was killed at a militia checkpoint in eastern Ukraine. A man named Viktor Shulkov. He filmed it. The State Department is working on recovery of her remains. Anna listened. She did not cry. She did not scream. She sat at her kitchen table and she listened to every word, and she asked questions that Dr. Engel later described to a colleague as disturbingly precise. Where exactly? What time? How many men at the checkpoint? What unit? What weapons? Where was Shulkov last known to be operating? Dr. Engel answered what she could. Then she said, Anna, there are people you can talk to. Grief counselors. The foundation has resources. You shouldn't be alone right now. Thank you, Catherine. I won't be alone. Anna hung up. She sat at her kitchen table for a long time. She looked at the photograph on the wall above the table. It was from their 30th birthday. Anna and Lily, arm in arm, laughing at something their mother had said. The same face twice, the same laugh, the same green eyes. The photo was 6 years old, and looking at it felt like looking through a window into a room she could never enter again. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't dialed in 2 years. This is Shadow 7, she said. I need to speak to Colonel Briggs. The line went quiet. Then a voice. Male. Older. The careful, measured tone of a man who had spent his career in the darkest corners of the American military. Anna, we heard about Lily. I'm sorry. I need everything you have on Viktor Shulkov. Current location, force composition, communication patterns, movement history. I need it in 12 hours. Anna, you're retired. You know I can't authorize. I'm not asking for authorization, Colonel. I'm asking for information. What I do with it is my business. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. I'll have it sent to your secure terminal. But Anna, if you go over there, you go alone. This isn't sanctioned. There's no extraction package, no support. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. She hung up. Anna Hargrove had not always been Anna Hargrove. For 8 years, between the ages of 22 and 30, she had been something else entirely. Something that the United States Army kept in a locked file inside a locked room, inside a building that didn't appear on any map. She had been a sniper, not a regular Army sniper, not a marksman attached to an infantry company who qualified on the range and called it good enough. Anna Hargrove had been selected for a program that took the most naturally gifted shooters in the entire military and placed them into operational roles within the Joint Special Operations Command. She was embedded with Delta Force elements, DevGru teams, and intelligence units that operated in environments where a single precise shot from extreme distance could accomplish what an entire assault team could not. She had a gift. That was the word her instructors used during selection, and it was the word her commanders used throughout her career. A gift. The ability to calculate wind, distance, elevation, humidity, the Coriolis effect, and a dozen other variables and process them not as math but as instinct. She didn't think about the shot. She felt it, the way a musician feels a note, the way a painter feels a color. It was something that could not be taught. You either had it or you didn't. Anna had it. Her operational record was classified at the highest level, 14 deployments across 8 countries. She had provided overwatch for hostage rescue operations, eliminated high-value targets that threatened American lives abroad, and spent days lying motionless in positions that would drive most people insane, waiting for a single moment, a single window, a single breath between heartbeats where the crosshairs aligned and the trigger broke clean, and the problem on the other end ceased to exist. Her call sign was Shadow 7. She left the program because of Lily, because Lily asked her to. Because Lily said, I can't sleep knowing you're out there and I can't lose you, Anna. I can't. You're the only person in the world who is me, and if you die, a part of me dies with you. Anna had looked at her twin sister, at her own face looking back at her, and she had seen the fear that Lily carried every day, and she had made the hardest decision of her life. She walked away. She came home. She got an apartment in Arlington. She took a job consulting for a defense contractor. reviewing targeting data and threat assessments, using her skills from behind a desk instead of behind a rifle. She was bored. She was safe. She was alive, which was what Lily wanted. And now, Lily was dead. Anna opened a closet that she had not opened in 6 years. Behind the coats, behind a false panel identical to the ones used in agency safe houses, was a long black case. She set it on her bed and opened it. Inside, packed in foam, was a Macmillan TAC 338 bolt-action rifle with a Schmidt & Bender scope. Beside it were 2 boxes of 338 Lapua Magnum match-grade ammunition, a suppressor, a ballistic calculator, a rangefinder, a set of identification documents under a name that existed in no database connected to Anna Hargrove. She ran her fingers along the stock of the rifle. The metal was cold. The weight was familiar. It fit against her shoulder the way it always had, like an extension of her skeleton. She booked a flight to Poland under a cover name. From Poland, she crossed into Ukraine through a border point used by humanitarian workers and journalists. Her credentials identified her as a freelance conflict photographer. The documents were perfect because they had been made by the same people who made documents for the CIA. She made contact with a former asset in Dnipro, a Ukrainian intelligence officer named Taras, who had worked with American special operations teams during the early years of the conflict. Taras owed favors to people who owed favors to Colonel Briggs, and when Anna appeared at his door, he looked at her face and recognized immediately that this was not a woman who had come to take photographs. Shadow 7, he said quietly. He had heard the call sign before. Every intelligence officer in the theater had. I need transport east, Anna said, and I need current positions on Sholkov's militia, specifically his command element. Taras provided both. He gave her a vehicle, a battered civilian sedan that would attract no attention. He gave her coordinates, updated within the last 24 hours by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones, showing Sholkov's primary operating base in an abandoned school building near the village of Kremina. He gave her the patrol patterns of Sholkov's outer security ring. He has between 30 and 40 fighters, Taras said. Heavy weapons, mortars. He's fortified the school. He thinks he's untouchable. How close can I get without being seen? Taras studied the map. There's a tree line on the ridge to the northwest, 800 meters from the school, maybe 900. Good elevation, good concealment. Anna looked at the distance. 800 meters. She had made shots at over 1,400. 800 was close range for what she did. That will work, she said. She drove east at night, alone. She left the sedan 2 miles from the ridge and covered the rest on foot, carrying the rifle case and a small pack with water, camouflage netting, and enough supplies for 72 hours. She moved through the Ukrainian darkness the way she had moved through darkness in Afghanistan and Iraq and Somalia, slow and deliberate and perfectly silent. She reached the tree line before dawn. She selected a position behind a fallen oak tree with natural concealment and clear sight lines to the school compound below. She set up the rifle. She calibrated the scope. She spread the camouflage netting over her position and settled into the ground and became part of the landscape. Then she waited. She waited for 19 hours. 19 hours of absolute stillness. 19 hours of watching the compound through the scope, cataloging every movement, every face, every pattern. She watched guards rotate. She watched vehicles come and go. She watched fighters eat and smoke and argue and sleep. She was looking for one face, one specific face, the face she had memorized from the intelligence package, the face of the man who had killed her sister on a dirt road between 2 wheat fields. Viktor Sholkov emerged from the school building at 4:12 p.m. on the second day. He walked into the courtyard with 2 bodyguards and stood near a vehicle and lit a cigarette. He was tall, lean, with close-cropped gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from something hard and left out in the weather. He wore a sidearm on his hip, and he stood with the posture of a man who believed he was untouchable. Anna watched him through the scope. Her crosshairs settled on his chest. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped. The world narrowed to a single point, the intersection of 2 fine lines hovering over the sternum of the man who had taken the only person in the world who shared her face. She thought about Lily, about the birthday photograph, about the way Lily tilted her head when she was thinking, about the phone calls that lasted 2 hours because neither of them wanted to hang up, about the last conversation they had, 3 weeks ago, When Lily called from Dnipro and said, "I'm being careful, Anna, I promise," and Anna had said, "You'd better be," and Lily had laughed, and the laugh was Anna's laugh, the same sound from two different throats, she would never hear that laugh again. Anna breathed. 1 breath. 2. On the exhale, in the natural pause between heartbeats, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The round crossed 814 meters of Ukrainian air in slightly less than 1 second. It struck Shulkov in the left shoulder, exactly where Anna had aimed. Not the chest, not the head, the shoulder. The shot shattered his collarbone and scapula and spun him sideways and dropped him to the ground screaming. She had not aimed to kill. She had aimed to stop him, to put him on the ground, to end his ability to hold a weapon, to command his men, to stand upright with the posture of a man who believed consequences didn't apply to him. Anna Hargrove was the most gifted sniper her unit had ever produced. If she had wanted Viktor Shulkov dead, he would have been dead before his cigarette hit the ground. She chose the shoulder because killing him was too simple, too fast. Lily deserved more than a fast ending for the man who murdered her. Lily, who believed in courts and testimony and the slow, grinding machinery of justice, deserved to see that machinery work. A living Shulkov could be arrested. A living Shulkov could be tried. A living Shulkov could sit in a courtroom and listen to the evidence and hear the names of every person he had killed and face the verdict and spend the rest of his life in a cell, knowing that the world had seen what he did and judged him for it. That was Lily's kind of justice. Anna gave it to her. The compound erupted into chaos. Fighters scrambled for cover. Bodyguards dragged Shulkov behind the vehicle, leaving a trail of blood in the dirt. They scanned the tree line, the ridges, the open ground. They fired in 3 directions. None of the rounds came close to Anna's position because they had no idea where she was. A ghost on a ridge, invisible, already packing up. Anna broke down the rifle in 90 seconds. She was off the ridge and moving west before Shulkov's men organized their first search patrol. She covered 2 miles in 30 minutes, reached the Sudan, and drove north toward the Ukrainian-controlled territory. She crossed the contact line through a route Taras had identified and was in Dnipro by midnight. She called Colonel Briggs from Taras's secure line. "Shulkov is down, shoulder wound. He's alive. His compound coordinates are confirmed. Ukrainian forces can move on his position within hours." "You left him alive," Briggs said. It wasn't a question. There was something in his voice that might have been surprise, or might have been respect. Lily would have wanted him alive. She believed in trials. She believed in accountability. He's going to get both. Briggs was quiet for a moment. The Ukrainians have been wanting to move on Shulkov for months. They didn't have confirmation of his exact location. They do now. I'll pass it through channels. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces raided the school compound 18 hours later. They found Shulkov in a makeshift medical room, his shoulder destroyed, his left arm immobilized, pumped full of whatever painkillers his men could find. He was unable to resist. His fighters, demoralized and leaderless since the shot that came from nowhere, surrendered with minimal resistance. 27 men were detained. The compound yielded weapons, communications equipment, and most critically, Shulkov's personal laptop, which contained records of every operation his militia had conducted over the previous 2 years, including the execution of Lily Hargrove. Shulkov was transferred to Ukrainian custody and subsequently to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, under a joint agreement between Ukrainian and international authorities. He was charged with war crimes, including the murder of a protected humanitarian worker, the targeting of civilians, and the operation of illegal burial sites. The evidence was extensive. The video he had recorded of Lily's execution, the video he had distributed to terrorize the world, became the prosecution's primary exhibit. The tool he had used to create fear became the instrument of his conviction. The trial lasted 5 months. Shulkov sat in the dock with his left arm in a permanent sling, the shattered shoulder a wound that would never fully heal. He listened to the testimony of witnesses, survivors, and the colleagues of the people he had killed. He listened to Dr. Catherine Engel describe Lily Hargrove's work, her courage, her belief that documenting the truth was worth the risk. He listened to Oleg, the translator, describe the moment Lily was pulled from the SUV, how she didn't beg, how she looked at Shulkov with an expression that was not fear, but defiance. He was convicted on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment without the possibility of release. When the verdict was read, Sholkov showed no emotion, but his left hand, the only one that still worked, was trembling. Anna watched the verdict on a laptop in her apartment in Arlington. She sat at the same kitchen table where she had received the phone call. She looked at the same photograph on the wall. The 30th birthday. 2 faces, 1 laugh. She didn't feel satisfaction. She didn't feel closure. Those were words that people used when they hadn't lost the person who was the other half of their reflection. What she felt was quieter than that, a sense that she had done the thing that needed doing, and done it in a way that honored who Lily was, not with vengeance, with precision, with restraint, with the decision to wound instead of kill because her sister believed that even the worst people deserved to face judgment from something larger than a single bullet. Colonel Briggs called her that evening. The ICC prosecutor sent a private communication through channels. She wanted to thank whoever provided the intelligence and tactical support that led to Sholkov's capture. She said, and I'm quoting, that it was the most significant contribution to international justice she had seen in 20 years. Anna said nothing. She also asked if the individual responsible would be willing to consult on future cases involving the location of war crimes suspects. I'm retired, Colonel. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. Briggs paused. And if another situation arises where someone like Sholkov threatens people like Lily, people who are out there documenting the truth because someone has to? Anna looked at the photograph on the wall, at her sister's face, at her own face, at the space between them that used to be filled with laughter and was now filled with silence. Then I'll do what Lily would have wanted, Anna said. I'll make sure they face a courtroom instead of a grave, but I'll be the reason they get there. 6 months later, Anna Hargrove was sitting at her desk at the defense contracting firm, reviewing a threat assessment for a client in Eastern Europe. Her coffee was cold. Her work was routine. She wore a gray sweater and reading glasses, and she looked like any other analyst in any other office in Arlington. Ordinary, unremarkable. On her desk was a framed photograph of Lily, taken in South Sudan, standing in front of a makeshift clinic, smiling, her red hair pulled back, her green eyes bright with the particular intensity of someone who believed that the world could be better and was willing to risk everything to prove it. Anna looked at it every morning. She touched the frame sometimes, lightly, the way you touch something fragile and irreplaceable. The rifle case was in the closet. The false panel was closed. The documents under the other name were tucked into a waterproof envelope beside the ammunition. Everything in its place. Everything ready. Because Shadow 7 never truly retired. She just learned to wait. And waiting, as every sniper knows, is not the absence of action. It is the most disciplined form of action there is. Anna Hargrove drank her cold coffee and reviewed her files and carried her sister's memory in the only way she knew how, by being ready, by being still, by being the unseen thing on the ridge that the men who hurt the innocent never knew was there until it was far, far too late. If you believe that true heroes carry scars and not capes, share this story.